Good morning, everyone. This is Debbie Royce, Empire State Development's Corporate Secretary. I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's meeting. Before we formally begin, I would ask everyone to please mute your line unless you're speaking. As we have our directors joining us by video today, we'll do a quick roll call for the benefit of those joining us by phone before we get started. Yeah, Kevin Law.
Yeah.
Commissioner of the Department of Economic Development, Hope Knight.
Here.
Hilda Rosario Escher.
Here.
Michael Rosen.
Here.
Robert Simpson.
Here.
John Wong.
Here.
And Benson Martin, designee for the Superintendent of New York State Department of Financial Services, Adrian Harris.
Here.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. And Chair Kevin Law, you're ready to begin.
Great. Thank you so much, Debbie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin Law. I've been honored to be recently confirmed by the New York State Senate as a director of ESD, and very honored and privileged that Governor Kathy Hochul has designated me as the new chairman of ESD. So welcome and good morning. I'd like to call the meeting of the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation, doing business as Empire State Development, for this Thursday, June 30th, 2022. Before we begin with today's meeting, and we have a busy agenda, I'd like to just take this time. I'd like to introduce myself, as well as two new directors who were also confirmed at the same time I was, and that is Robert Simpson and John Wong. And we all look forward to working with the other board members and with the terrific staff at ESD and with Hope Knight as we begin serving as the new directors here. As for myself, I've been involved in really economic development matters my entire career. I've spent a significant period of time with a major New York State law firm, Nixon Peabody, which has offices in Rochester, Buffalo, Albany, New York City, and Long Island. I've run a state authority before, the Long Island Power Authority. Most recently, I ran the Long Island Association, which is sort of like a regional chamber down here, for 10.5 years, which during that entire time, I was the co-chair of the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council. So I became pretty familiar with a lot of the programs that ESD runs, and got familiar and acquainted with the terrific staff that is there. But of course, I don't know everything. It wasn't involved in every aspect. I look forward to learning more. And for those who I haven't met yet, I look forward to meeting you and working with you as well. So that's a little about me. John Wong, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Thank you so much, Chairman Law. My name is John Wong. I'm the president and founder of the Asian American Business Development Center that was established in 1994 to assist Asian American business to compete in the mainstream marketplace. That we have been working with federal, state, and city economic development agencies to bring resources, information to Asian American businesses. And we have also been working with a Black Hispanic community in an effort to develop a cohesion and support of each other. And more recently, we have also been working with many of the corporations in the effort to promote and to advocate for Asian American corporate professionals. And especially in the recent in the last couple of years during the COVID, we have worked very closely with small business in the effort to help them to stay in business and help them to revitalize their effort. And so the work is continue. I'm pleased and honored to be on the Empire State Development Board and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and welcome. And I look forward to meeting you in person as well soon. Rob Simpson, you want to say a couple of words about yourself as well, Rob?
Sure. Thank you, and to fellow board members, great to join you. I am the president and CEO of the CenterState Corporation for Economic Opportunity, based in Syracuse, New York, the region's Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development organization, and have worked with ESD in some capacity now for the better part of the last 2 decades. So looking forward to serving in this new role.
Great. Thanks, Rob. And I got to know Rob as he co-chaired the REDC up in the Syracuse area, and occasionally we had some regional director chair meetings throughout the year. So I got to know him. Look forward to serving with you as well, Rob. So I'd like to ask everybody to please mute your audio until you're ready to speak. And I will ask anyone wishing to speak, please sure to state your name before you begin, so you can be identified for the folks joining us today by teleconference. And with that, I'd like to note for the record that in accordance with current legislation, this meeting is being conducted by video and teleconference. And I will also note for the record that the public was given an opportunity to comment on the agenda items by submitting their written comments by noon yesterday. We received about 15 or so comments were received in connection with agenda item 5A. That's related to the Penn Station project that we'll get into later. And all of the comments were distributed to the directors and have also been posted online at this meeting's ESD website page. As always, the directors have received the written materials in advance of today's meeting. And speaking on behalf of the new directors, it is a voluminous amount of materials that are shared with the directors ahead of time. So a lot of work goes into these meetings by the terrific staff in preparing us for these meetings and sharing with us a whole host of information. And so we thank you for that. And of course, the directors are free to ask questions at any time during the presentations on the materials that we received. At this time, I will ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any items on the agenda. And if so, can you make an appropriate disclosure on the record? And we will remind you to recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to such items when we get to those items on the agenda. Any directors have anything they want to share?
I do.
Oh, Hilda?
Yes. So I have to recuse myself from the projects down in Eureka, capital project. Pastone Corporation is the developers, and I sit in their board.
Okay, duly noted for the record. Rob Simpson?
Yep, Mr. Chair, I have one item, an item that CenterState Corporation for Economic Opportunity has on the agenda today, so I'll need to recuse from that.
Very good. Also duly noted. And when we get to those items on the agenda, you guys will not participate in those. So thank you. Now we will go to our agenda. And the first item on the agenda is the corporate actions. And we start with the approval of the minutes of the May 19th, 2022 directors meeting. Those minutes have been circulated. Since Rob and John and myself were not at that meetings, we will abstain, but I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I so move it.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second, Benson Martin.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? So the minutes have been approved, and note the abstentions of myself, Rob, and John Wang. So next, we will head to the next item on the agenda is I will ask Ed Hamilton. Ed is our Chief Administrative Officer to present an item relating to the appointment of an officer of the corporation. Ed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Law, and good morning to all the board members. This morning, it's requested that Elizabeth Luskin be appointed as Executive Vice President for Small Business and Technology Development. Ms. Luskin's appointment would be effective June 1st, 2022. While there's more detail in your board packet, I did just want to highlight that Ms. Luskin will oversee several of our small business programs throughout the state, including the Capital Access Program, the Entrepreneur Development Program, NYSTAR programs, and our life science initiatives. A brief background, Ms. Luskin most recently served as the president of the Long Island City Partnership, and she's the executive director of the Long Island City Business Improvement District. They are promoted economic development across Long Island City, worked on commercial development, life sciences, cultural and mixed-use community development, and she is a graduate of Yale University and NYU Law School, and we're very happy to have her here, pending your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Are there any questions or comments from the directors? We have not received any public comments with regard to this item, so I will now entertain a motion for approval.
Moved, Michael Rosen.
Thank you, Michael. Is there a second?
Second, Benson Martin.
All in favor? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Are there any
Aye.
opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, and we look forward to working with our new colleague, Elizabeth. So the next item on the agenda, I will ask Kathleen Mize. Kathleen is our Deputy CFO and Controller to present an item related to the corporation's annual financial reports. Kathleen?
Thank you, Chair Law, and good morning, directors. The Public Authorities Law, the law requires annual approval by the corporation's Board of Directors and certifications by the Chief Executive Officer and the Chief Financial Officer of certain financial reports. They'll be referred to as the reports. The reports consist of financial information set forth in the consolidated financial statements and independent auditor's report, March 31, 2022 and 2021, the audit report, as prepared with the corporation's independent audit firm, EFPR Group, LLP. The audit report for the fiscal year ended March 31, 2022 contains an unmodified, clean opinion reflecting that the consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position, results of operations, and cash flows of the corporation and its subsidiaries. In addition, the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance addressing whether control deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control exist, did not identify any deficiencies that would be considered to be material weaknesses. The audit firm was able to obtain reasonable assurance that the corporation's financial statements are free of material misstatement by performing tests of compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements, including the corporation's investment guidelines and other matters.
Can I ask everybody to make sure their phones are muted, please?
Non-compliance with any of these could have had a direct and material effect on the financial statements. Their testing revealed no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported. Included in the materials presented is the complete audit report for the fiscal year ended March 31, 2022. The preparation of this audit report included 32% participation by MBE and WBE firms and 6% by an
Kathleen, if we could just ask you to
Kathleen, I
pause for one
need to
second.
interrupt you. There are a bunch of phones that are not muted. You need to please mute your phone because you're interfering with the presentation. If your phone number is 347, please mute your phone. One more time, if your phone number begins with 347, please mute your phone. Thank you. Kathleen, continue.
Chair Law, should I back up just to the last few sentences I said?
Yes, where you left off when you were discussing the MWBE, that's when the interruption got more significant.
Great, thank you. The preparation of the audit report included 32% participation by MBE and WBE firms and 6% by an SDVOB firm. The audit committee of the corporation has reviewed the audit report and approves it for presentation to the full board. Also on the phone today is Douglas Zimmerman of EFPR Group, engagement partner of ESD's audit firm, and we are happy to answer any questions that any of the directors may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. So again, I know there were some interruptions, but what I got out of your presentation was we have a clean opinion from the accountants. No deficiencies in compliance issues were raised, and we have a strong cash balance sheet. Is that all correct?
Yes.
Well, those are three things that all directors like to hear on boards that they serve on. So thank you very much. Any board members have any other comments or questions, and please state your name before your questions. Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion for approval of the financial statements. Motion by Michael and
Second.
Seconded by Hilda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Kathleen. Next item is a easy one for me because it's somebody I have worked with for the last 10 years or so, and that's our terrific regional director from Long Island, Kara Longworth, who will now present an item related to the Long Island Investment Fund. Kara, well, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman Law, and welcome. Good morning, directors. This morning, we're asking the board to approve the program guidelines for the Long Island Investment Fund. This is a $350 million appropriation in the fiscal year 2022-2023 state budget to support transformative projects in Nassau and Suffolk counties. ESD will administer this fund, including the project selection and application administration and future reporting of awardees. ESD will engage the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council to assist with outreach for this program and application review. ESD will make the funding decisions. The program guidelines have been informed by the years of strategic planning by the Regional Economic Development Council and will focus on large-scale transformative projects that demonstrate community and state legislative support and that are aligned with the Regional Economic Development Plan, including support for cutting-edge sectors such as biotechnology and life sciences, manufacturing and advanced technology, Main Street vitalization with a clear nexus to economic growth, and the expansion of our workforce development opportunities. The projects will be prioritized by the following criteria: projects that have a transformative and lasting impact in the region, projects that result in quality jobs, projects that leverage non-state investment, projects that are financially sound and can begin in a timely manner, and projects that have demonstrated support from local senators and assemblymen. The fund will be allocated as follows. $250 million will be for transformative projects, including $100 million that is specifically for multi-year catalytic real estate development. And the $50 million will be for business competition and accelerator program focused on life and health sciences, and another $50 million for one or more workforce development centers. The applications for the $250 million transformative fund we expect to be posted on our website if approved today by the board hopefully by tomorrow or certainly within the next few days. And the business competition and the workforce development funds will be awarded through RFPs issued later this year. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kara. And I also want to thank the Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins and the Chairwoman of the Senate Economic Development Committee, Anna Kaplan, for working with Governor Hochul to create this fund. as I was stepping down from co-chairing the REDC, I had created a work group because I knew it was important to have a process for these funds. But Kara and the staff at ESD have made that much better with these new guidelines to make sure that there's criteria met. So by the time it arrives at the board, we know these projects have been properly vetted. Very good job, Kara and the staff at ESD with these. And with that, I'll move to approve them. Is there a second?
I second. No,
Does any director have any comments or questions on the guidelines or criteria? We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item either. And so there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is approved. Thank you. Next up, we have Allison August. She is from our Strategic Business Division, and she will present an item relating to the Restore New York Communities Initiative Program. Allison, please begin.
Thank you, Chairman Law. Good morning and welcome to the new directors. We're very excited to have you here, and I look forward to working with you. Today, I am requesting the board to authorize the adoption of the guidelines for the Restore New York program. The Restore New York program is a municipal grant program aimed at eliminating blight in communities across the state. Commercial, residential, and mixed-use properties are eligible for construction, rehabilitation, deconstruction, and demolition. This program aims to revitalize communities and induce commercial investment, improve the local housing stock, and focus on getting properties back on the tax rolls and increasing the tax base. ESD will administer the program and will coordinate the project selection process, application administration, and ongoing reporting by the awardees. ESD will also make their funding decisions with priority given to projects in distressed communities and to those that demonstrate feasibility and readiness. There was a $250 million appropriated for this program in the 2022-2023 budget, and we will be doing 2 rounds of applications with these funds, with the hope to begin accepting applications for the first round starting in mid-July. With that, I can take any questions.
Thank you, Allison. I'll start off with 2 questions for you. One, can this program piggyback on the DRI program? And number 2, are municipalities the likely applicants for this program?
Sure. So yes, we absolutely love to see that applications are from communities that are taking advantage of the DRI program. In fact, we view that very favorably. We like to see that there has been funding already into these projects, and these projects are well thought out and are already underway. We think very highly of that, and they will be scored such. Additionally, yes, municipalities will be the applicants for this program. The applications cannot come from private developers or property owners. We do require that if there's interest in this program from those sources, that they go through the municipality and work with them to submit an application.
Great. And as I assume ESD staff is promoting this and then sort of advertising this program to our municipal partners so they're aware of it and this new pot of money?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've been working hard to meet with municipalities over the last couple weeks. We've been doing webinars for the REDC boards across the state. And additionally, we're looking to do a statewide webinar directly after the guidelines are released. It's going to be the 2nd week in July. We're looking at the 11th, actually. So that week, we will be doing a webinar, and we're going to have an email blast going out to municipal leaders across the state.
Terrific. That's great to hear. Thank you. Do any of the other directors have any questions on this new program? Hearing none, we have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item. So I will now entertain a motion for approval
So moved, Benson Martin.
by Rob and seconded by Benson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you, Allison. Next up is Ray Salaberios. Ray is our Senior VP of Small Businesses and Capital Access, and he will now present the New York State Small Business Seed Funding Grant Program. Ray?
Thank you, Chairman Law. Good morning to the directors. The New York State Small Business Seed Funding Grant Program provides grant funding to small businesses and for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations that began operation after September 1st, 2018. The grants are flexible and can be used for many different eligible costs, including payroll, rent or mortgage payments, taxes, utilities, personal protective equipment, or other eligible costs incurred between September 1st, 2018 and January 1st, 2022. The 2022-23 New York State budget added a new section to the Act, creating a one-time small business seed funding grant program. The budget appropriated $200 million for Empire State to fund the program. The appropriation also covers the cost of administration and any technical assistance components. Staff is diligently working to open the portal to accept applications on or around July 11th or shortly thereafter. The program will last until the funding is exhausted, priority will be given to socially and economically disadvantaged business owners. The program eligibility requirements are structured to ensure that the grants are flexible and based on the elements defined in the statute. The thresholds set out in the proposed program guidelines, which are attached in the included director's materials, are based on data from publicly available sources, surveys conducted, numerous listening sessions with small businesses and community stakeholders. In conclusion, DSD Board of Directors are requested to make findings and determinations pursuant to Section 10G of the Act, authorizing the adoption of the attached program guidelines for the implementation and administration of the program, authorize the making of program grants, and authorize the taking of related actions. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. And I've gotten to know Ray and meet Ray. He came down to Long Island several times to our REDC. Ray, you've done a terrific job, and keep it going. And thank you for that. Do any of the directors have any questions for Ray?
I do.
Yes, Hilda?
Rafael, has there been a lot of businesses or programs from upstate taking advantage of that program?
Well, the program that I am presenting now has not taken effect yet. We hopefully have it again sometime around July 11th, shortly thereafter. I am supposed to I will make a presentation on the $800 million seed program, which will be shortly, and I can answer the question then. But basically, yes, a lot of businesses have taken advantage of the $800 million grant program.
Yeah, that's the one that I was referring to. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Great, thank you, Hilda. Any other questions for Ray? We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item, so I will now entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Hilda.
And seconded by Benson.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. And Ray, don't go far because we're going to have you do another presentation after we hear from our president, who is up next.
Thank you.
And so the next item is our President and Chief Executive Officer Hope Knight's report. And I'd just like to say I've had the privilege and honor of actually working and discussing with Hope, over the last several months. She is super knowledgeable, super polite, super friendly, super accessible. And I really enjoy working with her so far, and I look forward to working with Hope in the future as we now are officially on the board. So I'll hand it over to you now, Hope, for your president's report.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, directors. I hope you and yours are doing well. Since we last met, I've continued to travel throughout the state and beyond. I spent part of the Juneteenth weekend in Buffalo with Governor Hochul, attending some of the commemorations there. It was an opportunity to show support for a community that is still in mourning. As that city continues to heal, ESD is actively involved in helping with its recovery. I am proud of the work that our team is doing there in cooperation with the community to support growth and empower New Yorkers. In the Mid-Hudson region, I joined Governor Hochul for the groundbreaking of Regeneron, a $1.8 billion expansion in Westchester County. Regeneron is New York's largest biotech company and has committed to creating 1,000 new full-time, high-paying skilled jobs in the region as a part of this expansion. This expansion would not have been possible without ESD's involvement, and we're proud to see this New York State company continue to grow in the Mid-Hudson region. This project will encourage more growth and investments in New York's crucial life sciences and biotech industries. Last week, I joined MTA Chair Janno Lieber at a Senate hearing about Penn Station. The hearing provided an opportunity for us to present on the benefits of this project and answer questions from lawmakers and hear input from other stakeholders. I believe the reconstruction and expansion of Penn Station is the single most important public infrastructure project being worked on today. My work in Jamaica, Queens underscored how important Penn Station is to the entire metropolitan region. Every day, hardworking New Yorkers from Queens and across Long Island pass through Jamaica on their way into Penn, and they deserve better. This project is an opportunity to transform the station, vastly improve the lives of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who live near, work by, and commute to Penn Station, and make a historic investment in the region's future. You will be hearing more about this project later from the team. Last weekend, I attended a meeting of the State Economic Development Executives Network outside Washington, D.C. It was an opportunity to meet other state economic development professionals to share information, learn what other states are doing, and discuss best practices for economic growth. One thing that quickly became clear to me is that people in other states are watching what we do here in New York. There was lots of interest, for example, in our Green Chips tax credit, which recently received overwhelming bipartisan approval from the state legislature. The Green Chips program is designed to support our efforts to bring semiconductor manufacturers to New York State, focusing on companies building green plants that limit their greenhouse gas emissions and expand employment opportunities for economically disadvantaged populations. We're excited for this program, and I'd like to thank Governor Hochul, the Senate, and the Assembly for supporting this initiative, which we feel will help.
Disconnect and reconnect back. Being lost connection and then.
Excuse me, sorry, Hope. Can everybody please mute their phones? I see a lot of boxes on the screen where people aren't muted. If you're not talking, please mute your phone. Thank you. Sorry, Hope.
Sure. I'd like to thank Governor Hochul, the Senate, and the Assembly for supporting this initiative, which we feel will help New York State compete for these manufacturing plants and jobs.
Hi, if Nate and Chan could please mute your line, that would be helpful. Thank you so much.
I'd like to also
Hope, let me be a little bit more forceful than Debbie. Nate, if your name is Nate, please put your phone on mute. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome our new directors also, John Wong and Rob Simpson, who we've heard from earlier. And I also would like to welcome our esteemed chair, who, as he said, have been working together and look forward to working together in the future. He brings a wealth of experience and expertise to ESD, and we're grateful for his service and leadership. I'd also like to share some new additions to the ESD team. You will learn more about some of these folks during their officer appointments at our July meeting. Ray Orlando has joined the team as our new Chief Financial Officer. Ray comes to us from Nassau County, where he was Deputy County Executive for Finance. He brings extensive government financial experience to this position, having served 4 years as CFO for the New York City Department of Education and 14 years with the New York City Office of Management and Budget. Karen Utz has joined ESD as the new Western New York Regional Director. Karen was the University of Buffalo's Director of Operations for Business and Entrepreneurial Partnerships and administered the Startup New York program there. Karen started on Monday. So welcome, Ray and Karen, and my profound thanks to Kathleen Mize and Steve Garlick for filling these roles in an interim capacity. I'm also proud to announce that Ian Wells is also joining as Senior Advisor to the President and CEO. Ian is a lawyer by training who worked with me at Greater Jamaica on strategic initiatives and special projects, and he will be a great asset to the ESD team. And finally, congratulations to Vinny Esposito, who was promoted to Senior Vice President of Regional Economic Development. Vinny will oversee the 11 regional offices, the state's Regional Economic Development Council team. He's been a champion of the REDC process and recognizes the importance of our regionally focused economic growth strategy. Vinny will continue to work as the Finger Lakes Regional Director until a successor can be found. Congratulations, Vinny, and thanks for all your hard work. In closing, we continue to work towards accomplishing amazing things here at ESD, and it would not be possible without our incredible and dedicated team across the state. ESD is an agency. It's because of the people that work here that help us do the incredible things that are done. And I remain grateful for their hard work and commitment from our team and staff across the state, offices stretching from New York City to Plattsburgh and from Albany to Buffalo. Thank you for all that you do. And this concludes my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Hope. And I'm always sort of impressed and amazed by the depth, the breadth of all the different programs that we run. And you certainly have your hands full, and it's great that you're building up your team to help you with that. And they all sound like terrific individuals. Do any directors have any questions for Hope? There are none. Thank you, Hope. And now we'll go back to Ray Salaberios, who will give us a presentation on the pandemic small business, the COVID-19 pandemic small business recovery program. Ray?
Thank you again, Chairman Law. The $800 million COVID pandemic small business recovery grant program was created as part of the fiscal year 2022 budget in a partnership of the executive and the legislature to assist COVID-19 impacted small businesses. Empire State oversees the program. The mission of the program is to support the small businesses that typically have the least access to resources. The program strategically encourages participation from micro businesses, socially and economically disadvantaged business owners, minority and/or women-owned businesses, and small businesses that do not receive adequate federal COVID-19 support. As of today, ESD has awarded $599.9 million in grants to 34,094 small businesses. I am confident by the end of today, we'll break the $600 million mark. The program provides flexible grants of $5,000, $50,000, with the average award being $17,598. As part of the program's mission, 98% of the awards have gone to micro businesses, 47% of the awards have gone to socially and economically disadvantaged small businesses, and 89% of the awards have gone to minority and women-owned small businesses. Program grants generally represent a significant portion of an awarded small business's operating expenses. The investment has helped small businesses recover from the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Grant awards from the program are allowing small businesses across the state to cover costs such as payroll, rent, or mortgage payments, and personal protection equipment expenses. Small businesses targeted by the program do not have access to the same resources that larger businesses do. To ensure the program's success, New York State deployed a suite of services to let small businesses know about the program and to help them submit complete applications. ESD offers all application materials in 14 languages, is contacting applicants up to 30 times to allow them an opportunity to correct their applications. It is engaging in extensive program promotion, including in cooperation with our legislative partners, our partners with the Regional Economic Development Councils, and Chambers of Commerce throughout the state. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ray. I have 2 questions for you. So if I heard you correctly, by the end of today, 600 million of the 800 million should have been allocated. Is that correct?
Yes, 600 million of the 760 million allocated for grants. Yes.
And do we have a deadline of when we have to spend or disperse the rest of it?
Well, we are actively pursuing an aggressive campaign to continue to advise the public that funds are available. We are using our social media contacts, and as mentioned earlier, our trusted partners. I want to thank Vinny Esposito and the Regional Economic Development Councils, who have been tremendous partners for us and have come and really helped out when needed. So we are actively trying to push this money out the door, and I think we'll be successful in that endeavor. But no, we don't have a timeline as to when we want to complete it.
But no specific deadline. Fine. And
No.
thank you for that. And one more question. Listen, I know small businesses were hurt probably more than any other size business throughout the pandemic, and it's great we have these programs to help them. But I know at least down here, Newsday had a front page story a couple of weeks ago that businesses who applied for the federal payroll protection program, that close to 20% of them were fraudulent applications or people trying to rip off the government. And so I would just like to know, and if you could advise the board, what steps do we take to make sure that the businesses that need the money are legit and they're not trying to take advantage of us?
Well, the administrator we hired, Lendistry, has a very sophisticated algorithm that helps to weed out fraudulent applications. I'm proud to say, at this point, less than 2% of applicants, of over the 135,000 applicants we received, have deemed to be fraudulent or have gotten through in a fraudulent manner. So that's an outstanding number, considering how the financial services fraud statistics usually go around 25 to 30% of applications. So we constantly monitoring, revisiting our efforts, and in constant contact with our administrator, just to make sure that we are taking those steps necessary. Our auditing team has done a tremendous job in helping to implement these fraud mitigation procedures that we have in place. And I think the proof is in the pudding. Less than 2% fraud is really outstanding.
Right. And it's unfortunate that there are always people out there who try to take advantage of a program designed to help people. So I'm glad to hear that we have these procedures and programs in place to identify those who have ill intentions. And just with that, minor percent of those who submitted bad applications to us, if we give them money, do we claw it back, or do we make a referral to law enforcement authorities?
We are undertaking an initiative where we are making referrals to the law enforcement authorities. We want to send a message that you can't defraud New York State and get away with it.
Great. I'm very glad to hear that. Deterrence is a good thing. So thank you for that. Any other directors have any other questions for Ray? Okay, no action is required on his presentation. So thank you, Ray. So we will now move on to the project section of today's agenda, where we have regional directors and ESD program staff on the line today to either present the programs or projects and to answer any questions that we may have. We're going to start with Western New York. I'm going to ask Paul Tronelone to start things off with 6 items from our Western New York region. And Paul will present all 6 items before we call for a separate vote on each of his presentations. So Paul, please start things off with the East Side Building Capital Fund project.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, and good morning to all the directors. For your consideration today, as the Chairman said, I have 6 items, all targeted at continuing to advance ESD's revitalization and community wealth building efforts on the historic east side of the city of Buffalo, including the neighborhood where the May 14th horrific attack occurred at our local supermarket there. The first item involves a $1.79 million grant to the Broadway Fillmore Neighborhood Housing Services for administration of a new fund for graduates of a community real estate development training program that ESD helped establish in 2020 to foster the next generation of East Buffalo developers from the pool of resident property owners actually living in these neighborhoods. Broadway Fillmore NHS will use the fund to provide grants of up to $50,000 to help graduates pay for various pre-development work needed to attain private financing for their projects, as well as for small project grants of up to $150,000 for building renovations and site work. Grants for projects larger than this will continue to be administered directly by ESD. Now, the second item involves a $4.5 million grant to Preservation Buffalo Niagara, Western New York's primary historic preservation organization, to administer subsequent rounds of ESD's East Side Commercial Building Stabilization Fund to help preserve East Buffalo's collection of legacy commercial and mixed-use buildings for future developments by providing grants of up to $150,000 for various near-term repair and shoring up efforts, all designed to stem the tide of emergency demolitions occurring in East Buffalo neighborhoods. The grant will also provide funds for PBN to contract for professional design and cost estimating services to better inform their stabilization efforts. Finally, the last 4 items I'll present in a group because they vary only by geographic area and involve 4 grants of $1 million each to local not-for-profit organizations related to their continued administration of additional rounds of ESD's Commercial Districts program in East Buffalo, which provides small business grants now up to $100,000 for facade and building renovations in 4 targeted East Buffalo business districts on Jefferson, Fillmore, and Bailey Avenues. The grants also provide funds for these organizations to contract for architecture and engineering services to offer these services at no cost to participants in the program. And with that, I'll open it up to any of your questions.
Okay. Paul, thank you very much. It feels great that ESD can play a small role in the healing and the strengthening of this part of Buffalo that suffered such a tragic day a few weeks ago up there with that mass shooting. So I feel great that we're able to play a small role in that healing and strengthening of these communities. So thank you for your presentation. Do any board members have any questions for Paul? Okay, hearing none, we need to take 6 different resolutions. We can't do these in one fell swoop. Each one has to be approved on its own. So I will take a motion for the item 2A, the East Side Building Capital Fund as presented by Paul.
Move the motion.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions or no votes? That motion is approved. Thank you. I will now entertain a motion for approval of item 2B, the East Side Commercial Building Stabilization Fund, also as presented by Paul Tronelone. Motion, is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. I will now entertain a motion for approval of item 2C, the East Side Commercial District Program for the Kensington Bailey Commercial District, as presented by Paul Tronello.
So
Motion.
moved, Benson.
Is there a second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion is approved. I will now entertain a motion for approval of item 2D, the East Side Commercial District Program for the Jefferson Avenue Commercial District, as presented by Paul Tronello. Motion?
I so move.
Second?
Hilda.
The second by Rob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. I will now entertain a motion for approval of item 2E, the East Side Commercial District Program for the Broadway Fillmore Commercial District, as presented by Paul Tronello. Motion?
So moved, Benson.
Is there a second? By Rob. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. And finally, I will entertain a motion for item 2F, the East Side Commercial District Program for the MLK Park Commercial District. Is there a motion?
Motion
By
second.
Michael, seconded by Rob. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or no votes? Hearing none, the motion is approved. So thank you, Paul. All 6 of those Buffalo-related grants have been approved.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, directors.
Thank you. Vinny Esposito will now present 2 items from our Finger Lakes region. And as with our previous items, Vinny will present both items before we take separate votes on each of them. Vinny, and congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Same to you. Thank you, directors, for having me this morning. 2 items. First one is a $318,571 grant for APTA Capital. This is a Round 9 Regional Council Priority Project Award for a $2,570,000 project to build a 40,000 square foot manufacturing facility in the town of Victor in Ontario County, where this company manufactures RF shielding products. This project will retain 16 jobs and create 10 new jobs. It was completed in March of 2022. The second project for your consideration and approval is a $350,000 grant for Pro Am Pack Holdings. This was a Round 8 Regional Council priority project. This is for a 24,000 square foot facility in the town of Chili in Monroe County. This allowed the company to retain 57 employees and will add an additional 26 employees for their packaging production manufacturing facility. This project is being completed this month and is up for your approval. Happy to take any questions on either project.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the directors on either of these items? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for approval of item 2G, the APTA
I move the
capital
motion, Hilda.
I'm sorry, Hilda.
I said I move the motion.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion is approved. The next, I will entertain a motion for approval of item 2H, the Pro Ampac Capital Project, also presented by Vinny Esposito. Is there a motion?
So moved, Benson.
Seconded by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion is also approved. So thank you, Vinny. Next up, we'll have Zachary Becker, who will present an item from our Central New York region. Zachary?
Thank you, and good morning. For your consideration, I am presenting a $500,000 grant for the 8385 Main Street DRI Capital Project. In this project, 83 to 85 Main Street LLC invested approximately $2.5 million to renovate the building at 83 to 85 Main Street in Cortland. This building is a chronically vacant building that anchors the south end of Cortland's downtown revitalization initiative corridor. The project includes the developing of the upper 3 floors of the building, which have been vacant for over 75 years, into market rate housing to help meet the growing demand for downtown living in the city. This project will create 9 upscale market rate apartments on the second, third, and fourth floors of the building, creating a total of 9 new apartments. I could help with any questions that you might have.
Does anybody have any questions for Zachary? We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item, and also let the minutes reflect the last 2 items that we heard from Vinny and from Paul on the Buffalo items. We did not receive any public comments on those items either, which I forgot to mention. And so we have not received any public comments on this as well. And so thus I will entertain a motion for approval on the central region project that Zachary just presented to us.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you very much. Next up, Allison Madmoon, Deputy Regional Director for the Mohawk Valley Region, will present an item. Allison?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. The directors are being asked to approve a Downtown Revitalization Initiative Round 4 grant of $345,000 to be used as a portion of the cost to restore a historic building in downtown Utica, resulting in 12,000 square feet of commercial space on the bottom floor and 66 renovated apartments on the upper floors. In 2019, the City of Utica applied and won Round 4 of the Downtown Revitalization Initiative in the Mohawk Valley. The rehabilitation of the Macker-Tobin Apartments was chosen by Utica's local planning committee as a priority project for their strategic investment plan. The completed project provides updated affordable housing within the downtown catchment area and activates previously unused commercial space, eliminating blight and creating a more vibrant urban core. The total budget for this project is $1,180,000 for construction and renovation. ESD's participation in the project will be 31% of project costs, $345,000. The project is consistent with the Mohawk Valley REDC's strategy to redevelop and revitalize Mohawk Valley's downtown. I'd be happy to take any questions.
First, I'd like to remind everyone to please state your name before speaking. Thank you, Allison. Are there any comments or questions for Allison from the directors?
That's the project that I needed to recuse myself from.
Let the record reflect that Hilda recuses herself from this voting on this project. All in favor? Aye. Any no votes? And let the record reflect the abstention from Hilda. That motion carries. Thank you, Allison. Next up, Joe Taswell. He's the Regional Director of New York City, and he will present a project from that region. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. This is a request to approve a $1.6 million grant to Greenpoint Manufacturing and Design Center, or GMDC, in connection with the development of a 39,000 square foot manufacturing facility for small-scale manufacturing in Brownsville, Brooklyn. The project was designated as a priority project by the New York City Regional Council in REDC Round 9 and is in alignment with the Council's downtown revitalization and workforce development strategies. GMDC, founded in 1992, is a New York City-based nonprofit industrial developer. Since its inception, GMDC has rehabilitated 8 manufacturing buildings in New York City for occupancy by small manufacturing enterprises, artisans, and artists. GMDC currently owns and manages 6 of these properties, which total 700,000 square feet and are occupied by more than 125 businesses, employing over 700 people. This project, which has a total cost of $8.97 million, will anchor Bridge Rockaway, a $118 million mixed-use development that will include 174 affordable apartments, including 87 with supportive services for seniors, veterans, and chronically homeless adults. GMDC's project will address New York's growing emphasis on retaining manufacturing space for small businesses. Once complete, the facility will provide long-term space for approximately 12 small businesses and up to 35 new jobs. Construction began in April of 2022 with planned completion by June of 2024. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Joe. I have a question for you. Are all the businesses within inside this building, are they manufacturing or related to manufacturing companies?
They are, yes.
It sounds like a terrific concept. You hear about that concept with startup businesses and the technology field and social media. I wasn't aware that we were doing the same with manufacturing, so I think it's terrific. Do they get to share some of the co-working space, or is there equipment that they could share and not have to each pay for their own expensive piece of equipment?
I believe there is sharing. I mean, we've had a great experience with Greenpoint Manufacturing Design Center and have supported a previous project in Ozone Park, Queens. So yes, they have a great track record.
Oh, no, it sounds like a terrific program. Thank you very much. Any directors have any other questions for Joe? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. I'll move it. Second?
Second.
Second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed or any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, Joe. Continuing on, we will have the Market New York Grant Program. We'll receive a presentation from Kelly Baccarizzo. Kelly, can you please give us an update on the program?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As mentioned, we have 3 Market New York Tourism Grant programs or projects that we're asking for the board's approval this month. The first is Arts Westchester, Inc. Arts Westchester is a Mid-Hudson-based non-for-profit arts and cultural organization with a mission to provide diverse arts opportunities to the entire region. Arts Westchester was awarded a working capital marketing grant of $500,000 in December 2021 in round 11 of the REDC Awards. Working with the City of White Plains, the organization will use grant funds to host and promote the Serious Fun Arts Festival, a tourism special event featuring 4 days of music concerts, mural painting art walks, and more, encouraging visitors to come to White Plains in New York's Hudson Valley region. An IP has already been executed, and the grantee is underway getting this project initiated. The next project is Sullivan County Visitors Association, Inc. Sullivan County Visitors Association is also located in the Mid-Hudson and is based a nonprofit officially designated destination marketing organization, also known as a DMO, with a mission to drive visitation to Sullivan County and generate the maximum economic impact through overnight stays and visitor spending. This project was awarded a working capital marketing grant of $329,531 in December 2021 under round 11 of the REDC Awards. The grant funds will be used to develop and initiate Beyond Summer, extending the Catskill tourism season, a 3-pronged event and marketing strategy that aims to extend the upstate New York tourism season into the shoulder seasons of fall and early winter. This project has also executed an IP, and the grantee has begun their project. And our final project for this month for your review is the Natural History Museum of the Adirondacks. The Natural History Museum of the Adirondacks, better known as the Wild Center, is a North Country-based natural history museum in Tupper Lake, New York, located near the center of New York State's Adirondack Park. The project was awarded a working capital marketing grant of $650,475 in December 2021 in round 11 of the REDC Awards. The museum will use the grant funds to develop and promote More to Explore, Build Back Better, a marketing plan that uses a suite of strategic promotional activities to market expanded year-round indoor and outdoor Wild Center exhibits and programs that will rebuild the prior audiences while attracting new, more diverse visitors to the region. An IP has also been executed and the grantee has initiated their project. And if the directors have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great. Well, thank you, Kelly. And I think it's terrific that ESD, supports the arts and tourism. We get behind childcare initiatives because these programs are just as important to the bricks and mortar programs and projects that we approve, because it all relates to strengthening the economy. And so I think it's terrific that we're doing this. Are there any questions from any of the board members for Kelly? Okay, and on this one, we could make one motion for all three grants. Is that correct? Debbie?
Yes, Chairman Law. Yes, yes.
That is correct. All right. So I will move them. Is there a second?
Second, Benson.
Second. All right. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any no votes or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is the At the Direction of grant item, which will be presented by Simone Bethune, Senior Project Manager from Loan and Grants. Simone?
Thank you, Chairman Law. Good morning to everyone. My name is Simone Bethune. I wanted to remind everyone that the At the Direction of grants refer to those commitments listed in the New York State budget that enhance the state's communities through cultural, educational, research, and development, and civic organizations. These projects originate from the Governor, Assembly, or Senate, and ESD is named to administer the funding. ESD does not select the recipients of funding. Today, we are asking the directors to approve a $500,000 local assistance award to Center State CEO at the direction of State Assembly Person William Magnarelli of the 129th State Assembly District in the fiscal year 2021-2022 New York State budget. Empire State Development sent Center State CEO an invitation to apply letter, and the organization submitted an application to ESD in January 2022. The application was subsequently reviewed and approved to move forward in May of 2022. Center State CEO is a not-for-profit organization that serves as the primary economic, community, and business development catalyst in the Central New York region. The organization's work includes economic development, downtown and neighborhood redevelopment, regional strategic planning, and real estate management. The funds provided under this grant will support various activities in 4 broad categories, which include staffing, soft costs, outreach, and marketing to advance Central New York's unmanned aerial systems or drone industry. Center State CEO will also introduce companies to contract opportunities with the UAS Central Initiative, a coalition dedicated to supporting and providing technical assistance to the Central New York drone industry. The grantee will evaluate the success of its project by measuring the number of companies assisted with export of products and the number of targeted companies reached for recruitment. And I can take any questions.
Great, thank you, Simone.
Just note, this is the item I need to recuse myself from.
Very good. Let the record reflect that Rob Simpson has recused himself from participating in the vote on this project. Does anybody have any questions for Simone? Hearing none. All in favor? Oh, but let me make a motion first. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. I'm getting ahead of myself here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any no votes? And the record reflect that Rob has abstained. Thank you. So that motion is approved. Next up, we have 4 New York Ventures investment items, which will be presented by Clayton Besh and Momo B. After all 4 investments are presented, we will take a separate vote on each item. I believe Clayton will begin with the investment on a company known as Feedback Solutions. Clayton.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, board members. New York Ventures would like to ask the board for authorization for the fund to make an investment of up to $500,000 in Feedback Solutions, $2 million convertible note round with the balance provided by other experienced investors. Feedback Solutions is a Buffalo, New York startup that leverages best-of-class people counting sensors. This patented middleware platform that continuously calculates room occupancy within schools and commercial buildings. Data is used by the cloud to assure that the HVAC requirements are optimized in real time based on the actual occupants of the building. These real-time adjustments reduce the energy consumption as much as 40%, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and result in less wear and tear on critical HVAC equipment, all the while meeting space ventilation requirements as per HVAC professional guidelines. This data is also available to measure the facility utilization, especially now with post-COVID hybrid office and classroom use models. Use of this round of capital will scale up the marketing team and hire key team engineers for the next version of the platform. New York Ventures staff and investment review committee agreed that the market opportunity and growth potential offered by this New York State company warrants an investment by the fund and recommends its approval. Are there any questions?
Clayton, this is Debbie Royce. Could you do us a favor, and if you're, could you pick up your handset for the next item when you present? Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Yes, thank you for that, Debbie, and thank you, Clayton. And again, Clayton, just for the new board members here, unlike most of the other items that we approved, which are grants, this is an investment by ESD into this company. And so like with other investments, you know, there are risks, you know, especially with startup companies, you know, they have a high failure rate, but there's also an upside for the state and for taxpayers that we can actually make money if this company is successful. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Very good. And the investment committee, is that made up of ESD staffers, or do you bring in outside people with expertise in the investment world to assist us with that?
It's a committee of outside investors and technologists from across the state.
Great. Terrific to hear that, and thank you for that. Any other questions for Clayton on this first item? Clayton, why don't you proceed to the next item for the Bounce Imaging Company?
Thank you. New York Ventures would like to ask the board for authorization for the fund to make an investment of up to $500,000 in Bounce Imaging, $7 million Series A prime equity round, with the balance provided again by other experienced investors. Bounce Imaging is headquartered in Buffalo, New York, and is a technology leader in developing a stabilized 360-degree camera in a softball-like format for police, fire departments, and other first responders, as well now for military applications. Its technology, backed by 7 issued patents, with its advanced 360-degree throwable camera and canine camera systems, have been sold to and operated by the most elite users in law enforcement and DoD. The technology is an advanced panoramic image stitching method, 200 times faster and more efficient than traditional computer vision methods, communicating through advanced mesh networks and able to apply non-visual spectra like infrared and thermal imaging as well. The use of this round's capital is to scale up the marketing team and to expand the AI development team for the next version of the product. New York Ventures staff and investment review committee agree that the market opportunity and growth potential offered by this New York State company warrants an investment, and we request approval. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the directors? Okay, now we'll hand it over to Momo B for 2 additional investments.
Good morning, Chairman and Directors. My name is Momo B. I'm a Senior Director on the New York Ventures team. We're asking the directors to approve a $1 million investment in SAFE that will be converted into Series B equity financing for Block Power. Block Power has received a $1 million investment from ESD in January 2020 and another $1 million investment from ESD in August 2021. It's a software-enabled services company that uses machine learning, IoT data, and structured finance to retrofit energy-wasting buildings into renewable energy and energy-efficient buildings at scale in underserved market segments. Buildings represent up to 30% of the U.S. greenhouse gases. And Block Power has built a technology platform with proprietary targeting algorithms to replace expensive and inaccurate manual work with cost-effective software to produce accurate assessments and project management. Its software and financing facilities will provide low-income areas workforce development opportunities, green construction jobs, and access to building retrofit at scale to reduce energy bills and achieve 2 to 7% reduction in U.S. greenhouse gas emissions in the next 2 to 3 years at a 10 to 50% of the traditional cost. The company has completed over 1,200 projects under budget and ahead of schedule. It has been selected as a program manager to fully decarbonize 6,000 buildings in Ithaca, New York, and has a robust project pipeline for both its software and software-enabled services. In order to fund its activities over the next 12 months, Block Power is raising an up to $30 million Series B equity financing. New York Ventures will invest up to $1 million into the SAFE investment round that will be converting into the Series B, with the balance being provided by private sector investors led by Obsidian Investment Partners, a New York-based female and minority-owned multi-stage growth equity firm with a specific emphasis on bootstrapped companies beginning to disrupt or create large markets. As part of the due diligence process, New York Ventures staff and an external investment advisory committee evaluated the company's business plan and growth prospects, as well as the terms of the investment. As a result of that analysis, New York Ventures and IAC both agree that the market opportunity and growth potential offered by Block Power warrants an investment by the fund and recommend its approval. Happy to answer any questions about Block Power.
Thanks, Momo. So if I understood and heard you correctly, this is our third investment, which would total up to $3 million. Do you have an idea of, if that number is correct, what percentage stake ESD would have in this company with a $3 million investment over the last 3 years? Is it still a de minimis, or do we have a significant stake in this company?
So that number is accurate. Our overall ownership will be determined after the Series B is closed, because we don't know how large that round is. We don't know the current ownership, but we won't know the ownership until that round has closed. But currently, before this round, we own less than 4% of the company.
4%. And is that, with all the companies that we invest in over the years, is that a ballpark of what our stake is typically? Is that on the high side of what our stake is in companies? Just curious.
Yeah, so the way we invest is we try to fill in a capital need. So usually it's somewhere, we aim for under 10%. So 4% is very much within our comfort level.
Got it. And the $1 million investment, and I know the ones that Clayton shared with us were $500,000. Is that sort of the target? Is that the mid-range, the high range? Do we ever go over $1 million, or is that about our limit in terms of investments that we make?
It's very much within range. So the check size we do is usually depending on the round size and depending on the stage of the equity round. So for earlier rounds, we tend to write smaller checks, and for larger rounds, we tend to write bigger checks. Our typical check size is anywhere from $250K to up to $3 million, depending on the need of the company.
Right, that answers my question, and it certainly sounds logical. You start out small, and if they're making progress, and we think they're on the road to success, we could invest a little bit more. It sounds like that's the approach you're taking, and it sounds like a rational one. So thank you for that. Do other directors have any questions for Momo? All right, Momo, you have one other item to present to us?
Yes, I do. So New York Ventures would like to ask the directors to approve up to $500,000 in a Series C preferred equity for a company called Hopscotch. This company has previously received $250,000 investment from New York Ventures in July 2021. Hopscotch is a software as a service startup for pediatric behavioral health providers. It is a women-led company with a diverse founding team based in both Buffalo, New York, and New York City. There is a growing need for pediatric mental health services because diagnoses in the last decade have increased by 108% due to cyberbullying, higher divorce rate, school shooting, and now COVID-19. To address this issue, Hopscotch is digitalizing the treatment programs to improve care delivery, patient outcome, and increasing access to care. In order to fund its activity over the next 12 to 18 months, Hopscotch is raising a $5 million seed equity round. New York Ventures will invest up to $500,000 into this investment round, with the balance being provided by private sector investors led by Graycroft, a New York-based venture fund. As part of the diligence process, New York Ventures staff and external investment advisory committee evaluated the company's business plans and growth prospects, as well as the terms of the investment outlined in Schedule A. As a result of the analysis, New York Ventures and IAC both agreed the market opportunity and the growth potential offered by Hopscotch warrants an investment by the fund and recommend its approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Momo. Are there any questions or comments from the directors on any of these four investments? We do not have any comments from the public with regard to any of these items. So, and that, as I mentioned, we need to take 4 individual votes for each company we're invested in. So I will now entertain a motion for approval of item 4A, the investment in Feedback Solutions, as presented by Clayton Besh. A
I
motion?
move the motion, Hilda.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Benson.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. I will now entertain a motion for approval of item 4B, the investment in Bounce Imaging, Inc., also as presented by Clayton Besh. Motion?
So moved, Benson.
Second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you. I will now entertain a motion for approval of item 4C, the investment in Block Power, as presented by Momo B. I will move it. Move it by Hilda. Second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions or no votes? Hearing none, the motion is approved. I will now entertain a motion for approval of our final venture investment, item 4D, the investment in Hopscotch, also as presented by Momo B. Is there a motion?
So moved, Benson.
Benson, is there a second? By
Second.
By Rob. John, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you, Clayton and Momo. Next on our agenda is item 5A, which relates to the final environmental impact statement for the Pennsylvania Station Area Civic and Land Use Improvement Project. I'd like, again, state for the record that we received about 15 comments, which of course were in addition to the numerous comments that were made at public hearings held, but we received about 15 comments from the public on this agenda item. which were provided to the directors and posted online to the ESD website. We have with us today Rachel Schatz, ESD's Vice President of Planning and Environmental Review, to present this item. But I'd like to call on Gabriella Green, ESD's VP and Executive Director of Penn Station Area Redevelopment, to provide us with an overview of the project. So Gabriella, please begin before we hand it off to Rachel for today's agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Law. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen now for the presentation. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Chairman Law, and good morning, directors. My name is Gabriella Green. It has been a while since.
Could you
we
make
came
your
before the
slides
directors.
full screen?
I believe I'm doing that. What do you see? You see something other than
They are now.
screen?
No, it looks fine, Gabriella, now.
Okay, great. Thank you. It has been a while since we came before the directors to discuss the Penn Station Area Civic and Land Use Improvement Project. And before addressing the related action item on today's agenda, I wanted to provide a refresher on the project's purpose and goals, as well as to highlight some of the proposed revisions to the plan since Governor Hochul took office, which are based on hundreds of hours of community meetings, public hearings, and other feedback sessions, as well as hundreds of public comments we received. Penn Station is the busiest transit hub in North America. The current station was built over 50 years ago to accommodate 200,000 daily trips. Prior to the pandemic, it was handling 600,000 daily trips, which is well above the capacity and both unsafe and unpleasant for passengers. Even with COVID, the MTA predicts a spike in ridership over the next 15 years. We also would like to note that sustainable growth means concentrating density and jobs at transit hubs, such as Penn Station, to encourage the use of public transit and discourage car travel. This will get people out of cars and onto transit, and also means shorter commutes. Our goals for the project are to create transit-oriented mixed-use development and a vibrant pedestrian-friendly public realm around Penn Station. Significant transit improvements to connect Penn to surrounding subway stations and dramatically increase the number of entrances and to ease congestion and eliminate pinch points is another goal. We also will foster long-term economic growth for New York City and the Penn Station area, which despite its prominent location has lagged as a central business district for decades compared to Midtown West, East Midtown, and Lower Manhattan. And finally, a goal is to generate revenue for the Penn reconstruction and potential Penn expansion through the sale of development rights and the dedication of a portion of payments in lieu of taxes or pilots on commercial buildings. Development-related revenues are a well-established source of funding that would allow the state to finance the majority of its share for these critical infrastructure projects and address the federal government's preference for proven and predictable funding mechanisms over uncertain annual budget appropriations. Our project area is bounded by 9th Avenue to the west, 34th Street to the north, 6th Avenue to the east, and 30th Street to the south. It comprises up to 10 buildings on 8 development sites surrounding Penn Station. Note here in bold red, sites 1, 2, and 3 on the south side of Penn Station would only be redeveloped if they are the selected sites for the potential Penn expansion, which requires a full separate federal review being led by the railroads. And acquisition and demolition is necessary to construct the expanded Penn Station. Our project does not allow for eminent domain or condemnation of any sites. If sites 1 through 3 are selected as the preferred location for the potential expansion, acquisition of those sites would require a further process, and that would likely not be undertaken by ESD. We have done extensive community outreach over the past 2 years, including holding 20 Community Advisory Committee, or CAC, and CAC working group meetings, including one this week to preview the final environmental impact statement. This group includes representatives of all local elected officials, community representatives, and advocates with relevant technical expertise.
Dozens more public hearings, town halls, and meetings with elected officials, community boards, and stakeholders were held, which we participated in. In the fall of last year, after these extensive meetings with the CAC Working Group, the CAC Working Group presented ESD with 66 recommendations for modifications to the general project plan. 22 of those recommendations were related directly to Penn reconstruction and potential Penn expansion, and were shared with the MTA, Amtrak, and New Jersey Transit. ESD addressed all but 3 of the remaining 44 recommendations that were within the scope of our GPP. The 3 we did not, or in 2 cases could not do, were 1, to require ULURP. This is not the state's process for effectuating land use changes, which is what the general project plan is for. 2, to begin pilot payments upon plan approval, which is not possible since payment is based on the increased assessed value after redevelopment occurs. And 3, to preserve historic resources in all circumstances, which we cannot commit to since most of the affected historic resources are on the blocks that require federal environmental and historic resource review as part of the potential Penn expansion project. This slide highlights some of how we revised the plan according to the CAC Working Group's recommendations and other public input. We reduced the overall density of the proposal by 1.4 million gross square feet, the equivalent of 1 super tall building. We've required more housing, including 162 permanently affordable apartments, and allowed for a total of nearly 1,800 apartments across 4 sites, 540 of which would be permanently affordable. We increased public space requirements, resulting in nearly 8 acres of new public and open space, including pedestrian-friendly shared streets, a major new public gathering space, and the creation, announced earlier this month by Governor Hochul, of a public realm task force that will consist of elected officials, governmental agencies, community members, technical experts, and other stakeholders to develop a public realm concept plan that will be funded by GPP revenues. We've also required community facility space, included enhanced green building and sustainability requirements, and all of this will result in 50,000 plus good paying construction jobs. We've also been having very productive conversations with the City of New York Mayoral Adams administration about both a financial framework for the plan, including pilot terms, and about urban design and the public realm. To the latter point, Chair Garodnick of the Department of City Planning has issued a letter indicating support of our plan, and Mayor Adams has also stated support of our revised plan. We expect to finalize our financial agreement in the coming days, prior to finalizing the GPP. And we'll walk through in some more detail these revisions in the next slides. As I mentioned before, we conducted extensive public outreach, including 2 public hearings specifically on the GPP and draft EIS, or DEIS. We have had nearly 1,000 attendees, over 200 of whom spoke at the hearings. Written comments on the DEIS were accepted for just over a year, from February 2021 to February 2022. ESD received and responded to over 600 written comments since the release of the DEIS. Included in the final EIS, which Rachel Schatz will cover in more detail shortly, is an over 250-page chapter that responds to over 600 written comments we received on the GPP, DEIS, and the proposed revisions. On the screen is a breakdown of the aggregated comments that we received by environmental category. This slide depicts what the original draft GPP proposed for the project. It was all commercial, shown in blue, with some hotel uses shown in orange. The revised GPP reduces overall allowable density by 7%, and the decrease in added density from what is allowable today is 16%. The bulk is shifted towards 7th Avenue and away from 8th Avenue, where the land use pattern is more residential and lower scale. As mentioned earlier, our plan includes up to nearly 1,800 residential units, shown in pink, 542 of which are now required, including 162 permanently affordable units, to be built on Site 1A on the lower left of the image. The remaining housing can be located on 3 additional sites, 1B, 4, and 8. Currently, Penn Station has very constrained points of entry and exit, many of which are hard to find, creating unpleasant and unsafe conditions for passengers. Additionally, the intermodal connections between Penn and the subway system are highly inefficient, lacking direct connections to the area's 4 subway stations. Our plan will provide 8 new entrances to Penn and 10 new or relocated subway entrances, many with double height for increased visibility, pulling entrances off of the sidewalks and into buildings to reduce pedestrian congestion. The additional entrances to Penn will reduce the crush of passengers at pinch points exiting the station at peak hours, following the successful model of Grand Central Station, by dispersing passengers to multiple exits further from the station and closer to their destinations. Further enhancing that movement of passengers will be the below-grade pedestrian concourse, shown in orange, that connects directly from Penn all the way east to Herald Square and north to 34th Street. This concourse is focused on getting travelers north and east of Penn, where 70% of the station's riders travel to and from. This slide shows a rendering of a new public plaza that will be developed as part of the plan. At 30,000 square feet, it would be equivalent in size to Rockefeller Plaza. We'll provide space for meeting and gathering, but also key pedestrian circulation space for new entrances to the main hall of the reconstructed Penn Station, shown here in the middle of the image. We will look to the Public Realm Task Force for input on the design and programming of this space. This slide shows the existing condition of 31st Street, looking west from 7th Avenue. Moynihan Train Hall is in the center of the photograph. MSG is on the right. This rendering shows the future proposed shared street at the same location. Shared streets prioritize the movement of pedestrians, cyclists, and the mobility impaired. They are designed with the roadbed at the same grade as the sidewalk, giving a distinct feel to the space as different from a typical street. Cars are permitted, which is important for pickups and drop-offs at the station. However, the speed limit is greatly reduced to 5 miles an hour, which helps reduce crosstown traffic. We propose an additional shared street along 33rd Street, shown here looking east from 9th Avenue. This rendering shows what would be the longest shared street created to date in Manhattan, going from 9th Avenue to Herald Square at 6th Avenue, making 33rd Street a major pedestrian-friendly corridor, which has long been a long-term goal of both city planning and city DOT. Finally, this timeline depicts where we started from issuing a draft scope of work on the EIS in July of 2020 to when the draft GPP and draft EIS were issued in February of 2021. In spring of 2021, at the urging of public officials, we took a pause in the process to allow for an intensive community engagement process that went through last fall. The comment period for this plan and the DEIS has been open for over a year, during which we held the 2 public hearings I detailed earlier, as well as multiple town halls and other public meetings. Since closing the comment period in February of this year, we have reviewed and responded to all substantive comments received and completed the final environmental impact statement, which is the item on the agenda today. Following the release of the FEIS, staff expects to request that the ESD directors next month adopt the SECRA findings and UDC Act findings and affirm the modified GPP. Summary of any new public comments received subsequent to this meeting will also be provided. I will now stop sharing my screen and hand it over to my colleague, Rachel Schatz, who will speak to the item on the agenda today.
Thank you, Gabriella.
Good morning. The directors are being asked today to accept and approve the final environmental impact statement, or FEIS, for the Penn Station Area Civic and Land Use Improvement Project as complete with respect to its scope, content, and adequacy, and to authorize its publication, filing, and circulation in accordance with applicable law. The directors are not being asked at this time to approve the proposed project. The directors are only being asked to determine that the FEIS is complete, adequately assesses the environmental impacts of the proposed project, and otherwise meets the requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA, and is in proper form for distribution to the public. But before the FEIS can be filed and distributed, it must be determined to be complete by ESD as the lead agency for the project. That is the only action being requested today. As Gabriella said, it's expected that the directors will be asked to adopt SEQRA findings, authorize the general project plan, and take other actions necessary to effectuate the project at next month's meeting. Also, as Gabriella just explained, the directors approved the draft EIS at their February 2021 meeting. Following that, a series of consultations that included multiple meetings with the project's Community Advisory Committee and its larger working group were held to rethink aspects of the proposed project. A public hearing was then held in 2 sessions on December 8th, 2021 and January 20th, 2022, as a combined hearing for the DEIS and the GPP. Comments were accepted until February 22nd. ESD staff, with assistance from our planning, environmental, and legal consultants, have prepared responses to all substantive comments received from the public. The FEIS includes a new chapter, Chapter 26, which is the compilation of all these substantive comments and the responses we've prepared. In addition, there are a number of other changes throughout the FEIS, consisting of modifications to the project description based on the proposed revisions resulting from the CACWAG process and the public review process in general. These include the development program's density is reduced, residential with affordable housing is no longer an alternative, but is now required on one site and permitted on 3 other development sites. Community facility space is now included as a permitted program use. A recommendation is included at the request of the community that City DOT study making West 31st Street a shared street between 7th and 8th Avenues, and all buildings are to be designed as fully electric. After the draft EIS was issued, additional historic resources in the area were identified in ongoing consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO. One of these resources is the Gimbel Brothers Sky Bridge, which is connected to the Manhattan Mall on Site 8. The FEIS now includes the requirement for additional consultation with SHPO regarding alternatives to avoid or minimize adverse impacts to the Sky Bridge at that time that a specific redevelopment proposal is proposed for Site 8. Another important change reflected in the FEIS is the expanded program of public transit improvements that has been further developed in consultation with MTA and includes an underground concourse system which effectively reduces the number of transit impacts from what was identified in the draft EIS. And the analysis years for the proposed project have been updated to reflect the project's public approvals extended timeline, the extended timeline for the start of the Penn expansion project, and the duration of COVID-19 and its effects on office demand in the near term. The updated analysis years are 2033 for phase 1 and 2044 for phase 2 or full build out. These, as well as the other changes made since the DEIS, are all identified and described in the foreword of the FEIS. In conclusion, the FEIS has been finalized in conformity with SEQRA and its implementing regulations. The FEIS describes the project and its goals, assesses probable impacts of the project, identifies practical measures to mitigate significant adverse impacts, evaluates alternatives, and responds to oral and written comments submitted by the public on the DEIS. SEQRA requires the lead agency to file and publicly distribute the FEIS in the same manner as the DEIS, and to provide not less than 10 days duration for consideration by the agencies and public before SEQRA findings can be issued and a final determination made with respect to the project. ESD will hold open this public consideration period to Monday, July 11th. Instructions for submitting comments will be included in the notice of completion sent to the involved and interested parties and will be posted on ESD's website along with the FEIS, immediately following this meeting. And as I mentioned earlier, it is anticipated that the directors will be asked to adopt secret findings, affirm a modified GPP, and take all other actions at their meeting next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel and Gabriella. I have a couple of questions, and then I'll open it up to the other board members. I have a question. Three items. One, I just want to again verify what we are not doing today. And then I have a question on process, and then I have a couple of specific questions. I want to confirm that today we are not voting to approve the GPP, and we are not voting to approve any of the issues related to financing and the pilots, which we've all been reading about, which some of the public officials and the elected officials have been raising concerns with. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. And it's great to see our agency working with other state agencies like the MTA. And it also seems great that we have a great working relationship with the City of New York. Hope that is correct as well, right?
That is correct.
Great. I've just finished serving on the MTA board, and over the last 3.5 years, we were always briefed on the importance of this project. And again, it's great to see the integration and the collaboration between ESD and MTA. So that is good. On the process, I just want to understand under SECRA, and going through all the lengthy environmental documents, there were a lot of impacts that were identified, significant impacts that were identified, and then two, the documents show how we've addressed and or mitigated those impacts. And then three, there was a couple of instances where we were not able to mitigate impacts. And under SECRA, are we obligated to mitigate every impact? Because I assume that projects, have impacts. So what is our obligation when it comes to impacts?
Good question. So the SECRA regulations require that where significant adverse impacts have been identified, you must provide practicable and feasible mitigation. So we have identified mitigation wherever we've been able to identify something that can feasibly be implemented and can practicably be effectuated. There are a number of impacts that we've identified mitigation for, and we have said if that mitigation is not implemented, then we have an unavoidable adverse impact. But for the most part, we have identified mitigation. But as I said, there are some instances where either physical constraints prevent something from being improved, or the cost to do something is so prohibitive, nobody would ever imagine imposing that. But we also have a TMP, traffic monitoring commitment that allows for studies to be made about the conditions of the traffic and transportation in the area as the project evolves. So even though we may have not been able to identify mitigation for every intersection, for example, as things change in the environment, we'll be able to study it again. And if conditions approve or resources are available, we can assign mitigation then. And I'd also just want to conclude that the SECRA regs also allow for a balancing of social and economic benefits of a project against the impacts. So while you don't have to have successfully mitigated every single impact identified, if the project has an an outstanding benefit to the environment and to the project area, and in both the social and economic arena, then the directors are entitled to approve the project that way.
Great. That was extremely helpful, to me, and it certainly answered my question. I appreciate that. And then as for specific questions in terms of some of the impacts I noticed that there was an impact to open space, and that it was, some open space would be lost. But then the document goes on to say that, and I think with Governor Hochul's improvements and suggested revisions to the project, that there's going to be about 8 acres of public space created. And so is it fair to say that, the amount of public space we're creating is equal to or greater than the amount of open space that may have been impacted?
The situation with public space and open space is that, unfortunately, under SECRA, the public space that we're providing, while it is certainly improving the public realm and helping to improve circulation in the area, it doesn't fit the strict definition of open space per SECRA open space assessment. There are, like I said, we have identified impacts for mitigating the open space impacts. Some of those impacts are due to shadow from project buildings, and some of the impacts are due to just the introduction of a new, very large worker population. And so it has created a deficit in that ratio.
All right, but we're creating all this new public space, which will create a lot of public benefits. And based on your previous answer, that's something we should take into consideration in terms of the social and economic and public benefits that we're creating all this public space. So no, it sounds like you guys have done a very thorough, lengthy, and transparent process with more than a year's worth of public opportunities for comment and public participation. So sounds like a very thorough and detailed job that you guys did for a very important project for our region. So thank you very much for that. Do any directors have any additional questions for Gabriella or Rachel?
Yeah, I have a question. Are there going to be some families displaced? And if there are, will they have the opportunity to, for the apartments that are going to be built, the affordable housing?
Yes, so as we mentioned, the sites 1, 2, and 3 would only be acquired if the railroads determine that to be the location for the Penn expansion. And at that time, if that happens, there would be the direct displacement of approximately 128 apartments. And we have agreed to allow any tenants a right to return to new apartments built on our project site.
Okay. How about the businesses that we will be displacing, if any?
Good morning, this is Holly Light. I'm former EVP of real estate and am still working on the Penn project. We have assessed very preliminarily the businesses. Because of the turnover rate of businesses, it's too difficult at this point, so far ahead of when the federal process would happen with the railroads, to really confirm the number of businesses that might be impacted. So we're looking to the process that the railroads will run. That will be led by either MTA or Amtrak if they select that location. And they will do the further analysis on the commercial business impacts. So it's just too difficult at this point to pinpoint exactly how many small businesses and businesses might be impacted. But that will get further study and review in the federal review process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Are there any other questions? All right, hearing none, as I noted earlier, we received about approximately 15 comments from the public with regard to this item, most of them from labor groups and business groups and other civic-oriented groups and not-for-profits, all in tremendous support of the project, and detailed letter from the Commissioner of the New York City Planning Department as well, very supportive about the project and the process. And those letters have been posted online and on the ESD website page. I will move this motion for approval to accept the FEIS. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second, Hilda. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any no votes or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. And again, thank you, Rachel and Gabriella and Holly and the entire ESD team. I know this is a very significant project that includes a lot of staff members' time and efforts, and so we appreciate it. So thank
Chair?
you. Holly, Hope?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to make an acknowledgement, if I may.
Sure.
I'd like to acknowledge that today is Rachel Schatz's last day at ESD. She is retiring. She's been at ESD for nearly 30 years and is a consummate professional. ESD has benefited from her deep expertise in the environmental land use space. We will miss her dearly, but wish her well.
Thank you, Hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those words, Hope. And I wasn't aware of that. So, Rachel, I was going to say, look forward to meeting you someday. And so now before we meet, we're going to wish you a happy and healthy retirement. So God's blessings on you. And thank you for your service to the state and to ESD.
Thank you very much.
And so if I wasn't clear before, there was a motion, there was a second, and everybody was in favor. And the motion to approve the FEIS for the Penn Station project has been approved. So thank you for that. And we're almost there, folks. I know the meeting is running long, but we're almost at the end. I'd like to turn things over to Senior Counsel Doug Janice, who will provide a brief summary of the administrative actions on today's agenda. And there are 6 items, and the good news is we could do this all in one fell swoop motion, which we'll take at the end. So I'll hand it over to Doug Janice to walk us through these administrative actions.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, directors. As the Chairman just explained, in order to help streamline our board meetings, we previously implemented an oral summary presentation process for the administrative actions section. So you receive a full set of the materials for each of the items, but rather than having individual oral presentations made on each, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of all of the items. And at the conclusion of that summary, we'll entertain any questions or comments the directors have. As was noted earlier, we did not receive any comments from the public on any of these items. And then following my presentation and the questions, the chair will call a motion to approve the entire slate of actions in one vote. So the administrative action items submitted for your consideration today are summarized as follows. Item 6A is the reexamination of mission statement and related performance measures. So the first item relates to ESD's mission statement and performance measures. New York State Public Authorities Law Section 2824A requires each authority to re-examine its mission statement and performance measures annually to ensure that the mission is not changed and that the performance measures continue to support the mission. So the governance committee here at ESD has reviewed the mission statement and performance measures and recommended their readoption. Accordingly, the directors are requested to confirm the reexamination of the mission statement and related performance measures in accordance with the Public Authorities Law. Item 6B is relative to the acceptance of fiscal year 2021-2022 performance measurement report. So the 2021-2022 annual performance measure report contains loans and grant projects that were approved by the board or CEO during the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 and summarizes the corresponding performance measures. In total, the ESD board and CEO approved 355 loans or grants totaling over $297 million, resulting in funding for 351 unique projects and assisting 293 businesses and organizations, of which 50 were public entities, 132 were not-for-profit entities, and 111 were privately owned businesses. ESD's $297 million investment leveraged over $1.1 billion in private investment and resulted in the projected creation of 7,836 jobs throughout the state, which includes the creation of 2,175 new jobs and the retention of 5,661 jobs. Item 6C is relative to the authorization to extend sublease terms and terminate ground lease of the Webster Avenue facility and authorization to take related actions. This item relates to 6 properties owned by the City of New York on which ESD funded construction in the 1970s pursuant to a lease-back arrangement where the city ground leased land to ESD for a period of 55 years. Properties include 4 New York City public schools, a FDNY training facility on Ward Island, and a youth center in the Bronx currently operated by the Police Athletic League. ESD funded and managed the construction of the improvements, and then the improved land was subleased back to the city for municipal use for 40 years. At the end of the ground lease term, the properties revert back to the city for no additional consideration. Subleases on these 4 properties have expired in recent years. After lengthy negotiations with the city, ESD and the city agreed to extend the subleases on 3 of the 4 properties to be coterminous with the ground leases. Those 3 are Public School 398, Intermediate School 137, and the FDNY Wards Island facility. While at the same time, ESD agreed to an early termination of its ground lease on the Bronx Police Athletic League facility. The early termination of the Webster Avenue lease is arguably a disposition for less than fair market value under the Public Authorities Law, as ESD is foregoing potential rent through the end of the ground lease, which would have occurred in 2028. However, this disposition falls within an exemption to that law, as the transferee is a governmental entity, the City of New York, and the ownership and use of the asset will remain with the city, and the purpose of the transfer is within ESD's purpose and mission. The facility provides recreational and other services to local children and hosts numerous community events in the Tremont section of the Bronx. Directors are being asked to approve this early termination and the extension of the expired subleases, as well as to approve extending 2 subleases with the city for Public School 50 and Intermediate School 229 that will expire in 2023. Item 6D is relative to the approval of a sale of 10 North Pearl Street in Albany on behalf of one of ESD's subsidiaries to a private developer for $1.5 million. 10 North Pearl Street is a 40,000 square foot building that was part of the 10 Ike project to reverse a market decline in downtown Albany in the 1970s. UDC acquired the former hotel property and redeveloped it into 4 projects, one of which was this 10 North Pearl property. The 10 Ike subsidiary then leased the property to Albany Savings Bank pursuant to a lease that expired ultimately on March 31st of 2021, and the building has been vacant since that time. So as part of the lease, the bank was covering all the operating, maintenance, and pilot expenses on the property. Following termination of the lease, ESD assumed responsibility for those expenses, and they currently total almost $250,000 a year. As a result, ESD hired CBRE to market and sell the property. They listed the property publicly, and in October of 21, ESD received an offer from the proposed purchaser. The purchaser intends to relocate its corporate headquarters to the property and restore retail operations on the ground floor, bringing current jobs to and creating new jobs in downtown Albany, while also reactivating a vacant building. Proposed sale is in compliance with the UDC Act and the Public Authorities Law. And since the tragedy of the property does not involve any acquisition, financing, or construction on the part of ESD or its subsidiary, the approval of the Public Authorities Control Board is not required. ESD staff completed an environmental review and determined that the sale of the property would have no significant impact on the environment. The subsidiary in question is UDC 10 Ike Development Corporation 2. It does not currently have enough duly appointed board members to meet the legal requirements of a quorum to conduct business. As a result, approval of this disposition falls to the ESD board. The 10 Ike subsidiary does have current corporate officers who can complete the necessary transaction documents relative to the sale. Therefore, the board is being asked to approve the disposition of 10 North Pearl Street on behalf of its subsidiary, to make a determination of no significant impact on the environment, and authorize the officers of its subsidiary to take all required actions related to the sale. Item 6E is relative to the authorization to enter into a contract for third-party grant administrator services and to take related actions. We're asking the directors to approve a contract for a third-party grant administrator relative to the New York State Small Business Seed Funding Grant Program. This is a $200 million program to provide assistance to early-stage small businesses to help them succeed in the recovering economy. This program is tailored to meet the needs of new businesses as they try to survive and grow in this difficult time. The proposed vendor, Lendistry, has demonstrated success at administering the COVID-19 Small Business Recovery Program that Mr. Salabarios gave you the report on earlier, and has the experience and expertise necessary to the success of this program. It is anticipated that the duties performed under this contract will be very similar to the duties performed for the Small Business Recovery Program. The contract amount is not expected to exceed $13,263,570, and Lendistry will be responsible for most aspects of administering the program with some assistance from ESD staff. Staff has conducted a determination of responsibility review and considers this vendor responsible. ESD's non-discrimination and contractor and supplier diversity policies will apply to this project. As such, the board is being asked to make a determination that the proposed vendor is responsible, to authorize the corporation to enter into the contract, and to authorize the corporation to take all related actions. The final administrative item is item 6F, relative to the authorization to amend a contract for marketing and promotion services of the New York State dairy industry relating to the Dairy Marketing and Promotion Program, and authorization to take the related actions. But we are requesting board approval for an amendment to the New York State Animal and Agriculture Coalition contract. This contract is part of the market order program and was originally executed for a one-year term to provide marketing and development services for the New York State dairy industry. The vendor has requested a one-year no-cost extension to complete their projects, and no additional funds are needed for this request. And Chairman, with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Doug. A lot of information in there. I want to thank you and Debbie for getting us information the other day on all the individuals, organizations, principals involved, so the board members can make sure there are no conflicts. And so thanks for sharing that information. I only had one question, and that was on item D with the 10 Ike Development Corporation. The fact it doesn't have enough members for a quorum, are those gubernatorial appointments or the appointments from other people? And have we let the appointing authorities know that we need to get this board fully complemented?
So this is I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Kevin, this is Debbie Royce. That is a sole shareholder appointment that can take place within ESD's offices, and we are in the process of having that taken care of.
Very good. Okay, good. As long as we're addressing it. Thank you, Debbie. We have not received any comments from the public with regard to any of these items. Do any of the directors have any questions or comments on any of these administrative items? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval of items 6A through 6F as submitted on the written materials and provided to the directors and summarized by Doug today?
So moved.
Thank you, Rob. Seconded by
Second, Benson.
Benson. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? The motion carries. And thank you again, Doug. The remaining items on today's agenda were provided to the directors for their information on director's desk and via emails from Debbie. And they do not require any official action on our part. Is there any other matter that board members want to raise at this time?
Yeah, just a quick one, Chair. Just wanted to let everybody know that today is Rob Simpson's birthday. Want to wish him a happy birthday.
Very good. Happy birthday, Rob. And thank you for that, Hope. Is there any other business or any other question that any board members have? Hearing none, that concludes our business for today. Our next board meeting is currently scheduled for Thursday, July 21st. Staff will let us know whether or not that will be remote or in person, depending upon what happens with the state laws for all agencies conducting business this way. So stay tuned for that. So again, there being no further business, I want to thank again Hope and her team for all of the information and for all of the provision of all the written materials to us in preparation of this meeting. For me, Rob, and John, we've survived our first board meeting and hope it's the first of many to come. Look forward to meeting the other board members in person. And this will again conclude our business. I will move for an adjournment, seconded by John. We are now all in favor for adjournment. Aye.
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 The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a very happy and safe 4th of July weekend, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.